First Irish saint to be canonized by a pope. He was known to have some supernatural miracles associated with him. He's most famous now for his prophecy of the popes.
In the heart of Rome, where the echoes of history intertwine with the whispers of prophecy, lies a chilling tale that has captivated believers and skeptics alike for centuries. St Malachy's prophecy, penned in a cryptic manuscript, has long been the subject of fascination and fear. But now, its mysterious predictions seem to be drawing closer to fruition, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the Vatican and the world. Are we on the cusp of witnessing the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy? Or is it merely a coincidence shrouded in superstition? Join us on this adventure as we unravel St Malachy's terrifying prophecy that will come true in 2024. A journey of faith and leadership. Mael Maidoc, born in Armagh, Ireland in 1094, had a surname, Ua Morgair, that spoke of his noble lineage. Bernard of Clairvaux, venerated as Saint Bernard, praised his esteemed birth. He was christened Mael Maidoc, which meant devotee or servant of Maidoc, also known as Maidoc of Ferns. In Latin, this name became Malachus, and later Saint Malachy in English. His journey into priesthood began under the guidance of the renowned recluse Imhar O'Hagan, who later became the abbot of Armagh. Imhar was aligned with those who aimed to reform the Irish Church, and St Malachy soaked in their principles, likely influenced by Imhar. After thorough studies, St Malachy was ordained as a priest by Celach of Armagh, also known as Celsus, in 1119. After a short while, Celach appointed the young priest St Malachy as his vicar. For the next year or two, St Malachy took on the responsibility of overseeing the Diocese of Armagh. During this time, he diligently implemented the teachings and practices of the Roman Church in all the churches under his care. He ensured that the apostolic sanctions, decrees of the Holy Fathers, and the customs of the Roman Church were followed. St Malachy also introduced significant changes to the liturgical practices of the churches. He taught the Roman method of chanting the services of the canonical hours, bringing uniformity and reverence to the worship ceremonies. Additionally, he introduced new rituals for confession, confirmation, and marriage contracts, which were previously unfamiliar or disregarded by his parishioners. With the approval of Celach and Aymar, St Malachy embarked on a journey to further his education under Mael Isu Ua Hainmer, also known as Malchus, the former bishop of Cashel, who had retired to Lismore. Under Malchus's guidance, St Malachy spent 3 years studying and deepening his knowledge of theology and ecclesiastical matters, further shaping him into the influential figure he would become. In 1123, the leader of Bangor Abbey passed away. Bangor was a significant religious center in northeastern Ireland. As he spent his final days at Lismore, it's likely he was a friend of Malchus, bishop of the Norse city of Waterford, and part of his movement. Following his death, St Malachy's uncle, who succeeded him, showed a willingness to step down from his position and hand over the monastery to his nephew. This paved the way for St Malachy to become the abbot of Bangor Abbey. This transition also provided an opportunity to follow one of the rules set out in the Synod of Rathbrasale by establishing the Diocese of Connor. Celach, who held the position of Coarb of Patrick and had been consecrated as a bishop, had successfully organized the Diocese of Armagh in line with the Rathbrasale plan. With St Malachy's respected status as the Coarb of Comgall, it was likely that, if he became a bishop, he could effectively organize the Diocese of Connor. In 1124, St Malachy made the journey to Bangor, where he was officially appointed as the abbot and consecrated as a bishop by Celach. Bernard, a chronicler of the time, shares fascinating stories about St Malachy's dedication to religion. He praises Malachy's passion for his faith, which was evident in his work in Connor and Armagh. During his tenure as Bishop of Down and Connor, St Malachy demonstrated remarkable leadership. In 1127, he made a second journey to Lismore, where he served as a confessor to Cormac MacCarthy, the Prince of Desmond. Despite challenges, St Malachy continued to reside in Bangor, where he led the community of monks. In the face of adversity, he showed resilience and compassion. When native princes attacked the dioceses of Down and Connor, he relocated the monks from Bangor to Iveragh, County Kerry, where they found refuge under the protection of King Cormac. Upon the death of Celsus in 1129, St Malachy was appointed Archbishop of Armagh in 1132. However, he reluctantly accepted this prestigious position due to the political intrigues surrounding it. It took him 2 years to officially assume his role as Archbishop, facing challenges and obstacles. He even had to negotiate the acquisition of the Bachal Isu, a sacred relic from Neil, a lay primate who had seized control of the archdiocese. The prophecy of popes. Saint Malachy was highly respected, not just for his ability to manage affairs, but also for the tales of miracles associated with him, elevating him to the status of a revered holy man. His dedication to deepening spirituality and reforming religious practices made him a cherished figure among those who lived alongside him. Even after his passing in 1148, St. Malachy's influence continued to grow, leading to his canonization as a saint by Pope Clement III in 1090. His contributions left an indelible mark on the Irish Church. Over time, his narrative became intertwined with legends of prophecy, particularly through the famous prophecy of the popes. One significant moment in St. Malachy's life was his pilgrimage to Rome, which served as a crucial political mission as well. In 1139, he embarked on this journey to meet with Pope Innocent II, seeking support for the bishops of Armagh and Cashel. This endeavor showcased his commitment to strengthening the bonds between the Irish Church and the Holy See, marking a crucial chapter in his career as a reformer. What truly captures the imagination about St. Malachy is the specific vision he reportedly had during his pilgrimage. As he climbed the hills of Rome, deeply engaged in prayer, he entered a trance-like state. In this profound spiritual experience, he is said to have been granted a glimpse into the future, outlining the succession of popes from his time until the end of days. Upon returning from this trance, St. Malachy meticulously documented these visions, ensuring that his prophecy would endure through the ages. St. Malachy's prophecy remained shrouded in mystery for centuries, only coming to light in the late 16th century. This long period of obscurity has ignited debates and speculation about its accuracy and the potential implications for the future of the papacy and the Catholic Church. During the trance, St. Malachy experienced a vision of a sequence of Latin phrases. Each phrase was believed to symbolize a pope, beginning from St. Malachy's time and culminating with a pope who would lead during a period of profound change or turmoil, often interpreted as a biblical apocalypse. The prophecy lists a total of 112 popes, a structured compilation that has fascinated scholars and the curious alike for generations. However, it's the end of this list that has captured the world's imagination. The 112th pope, referred to as Peter the Roman, is the focal point of St. Malachy's prophecy. According to the prophecy, this pope is expected to guide the church through a time of immense upheaval or transformation. This has sparked widespread speculation and debate, especially given that Pope Francis, the current pope as of 2024, technically occupies the position of the 112th pope. The prophecy's suggestion that we might be witnessing the era of the final pope has raised questions and concerns among believers and those intrigued by the prophecy. Is St. Malachy's prophecy an authentic glimpse into the future, or is it simply a captivating historical artifact? If it proves to be accurate, it would imply that Pope Francis indeed represents the culmination of this centuries-old prediction. St. Malachy's prophetic thread. Pope Francis, born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, assumed the papacy in 2013. His every move and decision since then have been scrutinized by those who pay close attention to prophecies. One particularly intriguing aspect of his papacy is that he is the first Jesuit to become pope. The Jesuits, or the Society of Jesus, formed in the 16th century, are a Catholic order known for their dedication to education, missionary work, and charity. They have a reputation for being intellectually formidable and deeply committed to social justice. This background provides significant insight into Pope Francis's approach to his papal duties. The Jesuits have historically been influential and sometimes controversial figures within the Church, often playing key roles in major political and cultural events. This adds an extra layer of fascination to Pope Francis's tenure when viewed through the lens of St. Malachy's prophecy. This is particularly relevant when considering Pope Francis, the first Jesuit pope. To understand his role fully, one must appreciate the complex history of the Jesuits, including their expulsion from various European countries. The Jesuits were not only known for their educational and missionary work, but were also deeply involved in the politics and power dynamics of their times. This involvement sometimes brought them into conflict with national governments and other religious orders. By the 18th century, the Jesuits had become highly influential in European society, making significant educational strides and maintaining close ties with the Vatican. However, their growing power and influence sparked suspicion and hostility in some circles. European monarchies, wary of the Jesuits' increasing political involvement, viewed them as a threat. This tension led to a series of expulsions from major European powers. Portugal expelled the Jesuits in 1759, France followed in 1764, and Spain, along with its dominions, in 1767. Even the Papal States, bowing to external pressures, suppressed the order in 1770-73. These expulsions were driven by a combination of political, religious, and economic factors, as secular authorities saw the Jesuits as obstacles to their own power and influence. As a result, the Jesuits had to operate in a diminished capacity, and often in exile. It wasn't until 1814 that Pope Pius VII fully restored the Society of Jesus. Pope Francis's Jesuit background is particularly significant in this historical context. This rich heritage likely influences Pope Francis's approach to leading the Catholic Church, especially in addressing internal and external challenges. The Jesuits' extensive experience in education and diplomacy can inform his policies and reforms. However, this background also brings its own challenges, given the Jesuits' history of tension with secular authorities and other religious factions. It is not surprising, then, that during his tenure, Pope Francis has been a figure of both reform and controversy. He has championed issues such as climate change, poverty, and the plight of refugees, aligning with the Jesuit commitment to social justice. Nevertheless, his papacy has faced significant challenges, notably in handling scandals within the Church. These scandals have caused considerable turmoil and led to criticism of the Vatican's response under his leadership. Moreover, Pope Francis has faced resistance within the Church, mainly from conservative factions. His perspectives on marriage and communion, particularly concerning divorced and remarried Catholics, have stirred significant debate. Given the controversial history of the Jesuits, it is quite surprising that a Jesuit was chosen to become Pope. This unexpected choice can only be understood when viewed through the lens of St Malachy's prophecy. The prophecy, which lists Pope Francis as the last pope, adds a layer of intrigue and significance to his appointment. Many are wondering, how will Pope Francis's papacy fit into the final chapter of St Malachy's prophecy? When evaluating the historical accuracy of St Malachy's prophecy, it's fascinating to see how past predictions align with actual popes. The prophecy's intriguing aspect lies in its connection to historical events and figures. As we move through the list, the descriptions seem to become increasingly precise, especially in modern times. For example, the prophecy refers to Pope Benedict XV as religion depopulated, which resonates with the significant decline in religious adherence during his papacy, coinciding with the devastating impacts of World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution. Another striking example is Pope John Paul II, who is described as from the labor of the sun. This phrase uncannily aligns with his life, as he was born during a solar eclipse in 1920 and was buried during another eclipse. These connections between the prophecy and real-world events have amazed many observers. Pope Paul VI, described as Flower of Flowers, matches his coat of arms, which features 3 fleur-de-lis. The alignment of these details with each pope's respective phrases continues to captivate those who study St Malachy's prophecy. The predictions often seem too precise to dismiss outright. As the list progresses, the accuracy appears to increase, particularly with recent popes. This growing precision has sparked debates and discussions about the prophecy's legitimacy. It's as if the closer we get to the end of the list, the more detailed and accurate the descriptions become. However, it's important to balance this fascination with a healthy dose of skepticism. Debunking the prophecy. Many historians cast doubt on the authenticity of St Malachy's prophecy, which emerged in the late 16th century. Notably, Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, who extensively wrote about Malachy's life, made no mention of the prophecy. The first known record of it appeared in 1587. A Spanish scholar named Benito Jerónimo Feijó y Montenegro proposed in the 18th century that the verses' accuracy before their publication and their subsequent inaccuracy hint at fabrication around that time. Moreover, the verses and explanations bear striking resemblance to a papal history from 1557, suggesting a potential source of inspiration. In 1694, Claude François Menestrier argued that the additional explanations weren't authored by Chiaconius, as they weren't found in any of his works, or mentioned as part of his writings. Another fascinating theory about the prophecy's origin emerged from Louis Moreri, a 17th-century French priest and encyclopedist, and his contemporaries. They proposed that supporters of Cardinal Girolamo Simoncelli spread the prophecy during a 1590 papal conclave where Simoncelli hoped to become pope. The prophecy, describing the next pope as ex antiquitate urbis, which means from the old city, seemingly aligned with Simoncelli's origins in Orvieto, known in Latin as Urbe Vitanum, or Old City. This theory suggests the prophecy was crafted to bolster Simoncelli's candidacy, albeit unsuccessfully. However, a discovery in a 1587 letter has added complexity to this theory. The letter implies that the phrase deror coeli, meaning from the dew of the sky, might actually refer to Cardinal Giovanni Girolamo Albani. His associates associated alba, or dawn, with Albani, and interpreted dew as a symbol of the morning, linking it to him. This discovery adds an intriguing twist to the interpretation of the prophecy. Endorsement by scholars and popes. Supporters who argue for the authenticity of St. Malachy's prophecy highlight his reputation as a genuine prophet. Records indicate that he possessed the gift of prophecy, with one of his notable predictions foreseeing Ireland's oppression by England for 7 centuries, followed by a period of retribution for England and a renewal of faith in Ireland. Much of this prophecy has come to pass, and is corroborated by a manuscript discovered at Clairvaux, dating back to St. Malachy's era. Given his recognition in history as a prophet with verifiable predictions, it is reasonable to entertain the authenticity of his prophecy concerning the popes. Another compelling argument supporting the genuineness of the prophecies comes from the endorsement of 2 esteemed scholars from the Tridentine period, Cornelius Lapide and Onofrio Panvino. These scholars not only held high standing in their fields, but also showed deep interest in the prophecies. Panvino, a respected historian and archaeologist, played a vital role in bringing the prophecies to public attention. As the chief librarian and editor of the Vatican Library, he stumbled upon the manuscript in the Vatican archives. Panvino was widely respected for his extensive work on medieval and ancient Roman history, with over 16 major publications to his name. Such was his renown that he earned the title Father of All History during his lifetime. While little is known about the original manuscript he discovered, Panvino's impeccable reputation offers no grounds to question the authenticity of his findings. Likewise, Lapide was a renowned scholar, celebrated for his interpretations of scripture and prophecy. His writings, still studied and translated today, demonstrate his firm belief in the genuineness of St. Malachy's prophecies. Lapide devoted significant effort to studying these prophecies and even attempted to create a timeline to predict the emergence of Peter the Roman. Together, the meticulous work and sterling reputations of Panvino and Lapide present compelling evidence in support of the prophecy's authenticity, highlighting their importance and the trust placed in them by 2 eminent figures of history. Numerous other scholars, including Giovannini de Capugnano, Jean Boucher, and Abbé François Coucherat, have either published works supporting or commented on the authenticity of the prophecies. These scholars were well-educated individuals, most of them being historians, scholars, and experts in medieval heraldry and humanist textual criticism. They all expressed no doubt about the authenticity of the manuscript. While arguments from authority may not be the strongest, the overwhelming consensus among these respected figures, spanning many years of Catholic scholarship, warrants at least a respectful consideration of the prophecies rather than outright dismissal. Even if we discount the testimonies of Lapide, Panvino, and others, we can still argue for the authenticity of St. Malachy's prophecy based on evidence dating back to the 13th century. A notable case is the 13th century work called De Vaticina Summis Pontificibus. It comprises 2 manuscripts of papal prophecies later combined into one. The first part, penned around 1218, contains 15 papal prophecies starting from Nicholas III's pontificate from 1277 to 1280. The second part, written around 1330, adds another 15 prophecies. By the time of the Council of Constance in 1414, the manuscripts were merged into one, totaling 30 papal prophecies. These prophecies consist of concise Latin phrases, employing wordplay, puns, and allegories, much like St. Malachy's prophecies, and exhibit striking similarities in many aspects. Interestingly, during the 14th and 15th centuries, these prophecies were even more renowned than those of St. Malachy in the 16th and 17th centuries. It could be argued that St. Malachy drew inspiration from this earlier work, or conversely, that the snippets of De Vaticina Summis Pontificibus were hastily copied fragments of St. Malachy's prophecies circulating at the time. Thus, they provide evidence that St. Malachy's prophecies indeed existed long before the 16th century. Do St. Malachy's prophecies lack precision as we wish? Admittedly, most are only a few words long. But are the explanations and connections always as convoluted as critics argue? Not necessarily. According to supporters of the prophecies, vagueness doesn't automatically discredit a prophecy's authenticity. Many valid prophecies from sacred scripture are exceptionally vague. Consider, for example, Hosea chapter 11 verse 1. Out of Egypt I called my son. How could one foresee the flight into Egypt from this before it happened? Similarly, can anyone confidently assert that the election of Matthias to replace Judas in Acts chapter 1 is directly stated in Psalm 109 verse 8, where it says, "May his days be few, and may another his office take"? Unlikely. Yet, according to divine revelation, these are genuine prophecies. These biblical prophecies are vague, even more so than those in St. Malachy's list. It's often the case that genuine prophecy exhibits vagueness. In fact, excessive specificity can sometimes indicate a false prophecy. One compelling aspect that often goes unnoticed but strongly supports the authenticity of St. Malachy's prophecies is the centuries-long acknowledgement by the popes themselves. They have taken these prophecies seriously and have made deliberate efforts to align their actions with them. Carlo Marcora, an Italian historian renowned for his extensive 6-volume study on the papacy, published between 1961 and 1974, meticulously documented how many of St. Malachy's titles were attributed to specific pontiffs with official papal approval. For instance, Pius VI willingly accepted the title Peregrinus Apostolicus, while Lumen in Kylo was associated with Leo XIII, and Pastor Angelicus with Pius XII. Notably, Pastor Angelicus was even used as the title for the officially sanctioned 1942 biographical documentary of Pius VII's life and a posthumously published book in 1958. If Pius VI, Leo XIII, or Pius XII had doubts about the authenticity of Malachy's prophecies, it would seem peculiar for them to embrace these titles publicly throughout their pontificates. Their willingness to be associated with these prophecies suggests a certain level of belief or acceptance, adding weight to the credibility of St. Malachy's predictions. Now it's time for today's subscriber pick. In the heart of Vatican City, whispers swirled like incense smoke, carrying the weight of St. Malachy's prophecy. The ancient words foretold the rise and fall of pontiffs, a chilling echo of destiny. Pope Francis, with his gentle demeanor and progressive spirit, once dismissed the prophecy with a smile. But as the calendar turned to 2024, apprehension gripped the Holy See. On a storm-laden night, the skies wept, as if mourning the impending doom. Inside the papal chambers, Francis pored over ancient texts, seeking solace in the wisdom of his predecessors. A sudden chill filled the room, and a shadow loomed over him. The prophecy, once dismissed as folklore, now cast a sinister shadow over the pontiff's faith. As the clock struck midnight, the prophecy unfurled its dark wings. In the silence, a blood-curdling scream pierced the Vatican's hallowed halls. The prophecy had come to pass. In the aftermath, whispers turned to murmurs, murmurs to chants. The prophecy, once buried in the annals of history, now burned bright in the hearts of believers. St. Malachy's terrifying prophecy on Pope Francis will come true in 2024. They chanted, a solemn testament to the power of fate. As dawn broke over St. Peter's Basilica, the world awaited the next chapter in the saga of the papacy, haunted by the specter of prophecy. Do you believe in St. Malachy's prophecy? Apocalyptic themes and mysteries? The segment of St. Malachy's prophecy concerning Pope Francis delves into deeply apocalyptic themes, sparking widespread speculation about potential connections between his papacy and end-times predictions. According to the prophecy, after the 112th Pope, significant turmoil or even catastrophic events are anticipated, prompting many to ponder if Pope Francis's reign might herald major global or spiritual upheavals. When we examine the prophecy alongside biblical references, particularly from the Book of Revelation, the parallels become more striking. The Book of Revelation foretells apocalyptic events, upheavals, and the concept of Judgment Day. Some interpreters of St. Malachy's prophecy argue that the depiction of the final pope aligns with these biblical images of the end times, specifically the mention of Peter the Roman, who will guide the church through tribulations before the fall of Rome, echoes certain apocalyptic scenarios described in the Bible. Considering this in the context of contemporary times, it's intriguing to observe how current events within the Catholic Church and global affairs might resonate with the prophecy's predictions. Under Pope Francis's leadership, the Catholic Church has struggled with significant challenges, including issues with clergy misconduct, internal conflicts, and controversial reforms. Furthermore, global events such as climate change, political unrest, and social upheaval contribute to a sense of a world in flux. Some believers in the prophecy may interpret these occurrences as signs that the predictions are unfolding. However, it's essential to approach these interpretations with a balanced perspective. While the prophecy's apocalyptic themes may seem to align with some current events, it's crucial to remember that interpreting prophecies is subjective. Different individuals and groups may perceive these alignments differently. Some may view the events during Pope Francis's tenure as mere coincidences, or as part of the ongoing evolution of the Church, rather than indicators of an imminent apocalypse. Interestingly, Pope Francis is enveloped in yet another mysterious prophecy, one that remains obscure to many. The prophecy of Anna Katharina Emmerich. Emmerich, a German nun and mystic from the late 18th and early 19th centuries, had profound visions that foretold a period of turbulence for the Church, characterized by the presence of two popes. According to her visions, one of these popes would guide the Church through daunting challenges and significant transformations. The unexpected resignation of Pope Benedict XVI in 2013, followed by the election of Pope Francis, brought Emmerich's prophecy into focus. Benedict's resignation, unprecedented in nearly 600 years, shattered the long-standing tradition of popes serving until death. This historic event sparked diverse interpretations and discussions within and beyond the Catholic community, especially among those who delve into church prophecies. The phenomenon of two living popes, Pope Francis and his predecessor Pope Benedict XVI, is a remarkable occurrence in Catholic Church history. Some view this as the realization of Emmerich's prophecy, suggesting that the Church is undergoing a period of profound change and potential upheaval. Under Pope Francis's leadership, the Catholic Church has witnessed significant reforms and a departure from the traditional perspectives upheld during Pope Benedict's tenure. However, it's crucial to approach this situation with an awareness of the Church's intricate history and the diverse interpretations it engenders. Interpretations of Emmerich's visions, similar to those of St Malachy's, remain subject to debate and vary among different factions and individuals. St Malachy's legacy. Even after St Malachy passed away, his memory remains honored and cherished. Following his death, his body was interred at Clairvaux Abbey, resting near the tomb of his dear friend Bernard of Clairvaux after the abbot's own demise. Over time, St Malachy's tomb was relocated multiple times due to church reconstruction efforts. In 1194, portions of St Malachy's remains were transported to Ireland and placed in Mellifont Abbey and other Cistercian abbeys. At Clairvaux, fragments of his arm and skull were carefully extracted and enshrined in special reliquaries within the abbey's treasury. These reliquaries were adorned with precious stones and may have been adorned with intricate enamel or painted designs. During the upheaval of the French Revolution, the reliquaries themselves were destroyed, but the sacred relics were safeguarded. Today, St Malachy's head is preserved in a reliquary at Troyes Cathedral, not far from Clairvaux. Unfortunately, the tombs of Saint Malachy and Bernard were desecrated during the Revolution, and their bones were mingled and dispersed among various parishes in the Clairvaux district. Philippe Guignard documented the relics in the Patrologia Latina. St Malachy's feast day is celebrated on November 3rd, a date chosen to avoid clashing with All Souls' Day. What do you think about the authenticity of the prophecy of popes? Let us know your opinion in the comments below.